Our goal in the research was found by the ISTRC, and our goal was to find the optimum balance between the 3 zeros, delays, injuries, and environment. And we try to do it in terms of the combination between ethics requirements, engineering requirements, and law. The team was included a lot of people from different fields and from different institutions. You can see that there were people from Haifa University, from the Technion, from independent researchers as well, and we tried to do our best. We divided our research into few stages. As you can see, in the first stage, the preliminary phase, we were talking about terminology, which was different between law and engineering. You can imagine that a lot of terms in the law, it's different in the field of engineering. And then we were talking about the differences between autonomy and automation, which is not the same, as we all know. And on the second stage, we were talking about the requirements of how to implement values into these cars, into this smart transportation. We were looking into law and ethics requirements as well as engineering between the academics, regulators, and we tried to find out if everybody thinks the same. In this stage, we were talking about also how can we find considerations of ethics and law in tenders of smart transportation. The third section, we will hear about the law and ethics more from Natan later on. And on the third stage, we were talking about the product itself, how to manufacture the product itself and when to release it to the market. We will hear about the MVP solution, if it's good or bad in smart transportation later on from Tal. And the last stage, we were trying to talk about the differences between sea, land, and air. And we talked about smart ports. How do we use smart ports? How we combine the law implications and considerations with the new technology. In land, we were talking about ethics and legislation in smart vehicles, and in the field of air, we were talking about the automatic and autonomous flights. So now we will move on to Natan. Excuse me for the operation here.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Natan Pinhas from Technion. I present the one research from all the spectrum of our big research that Dalit said. This part of research deal with the value, selected value in transportation. Our goal in this research was to find the most important value, not only human value, in general values, that we can or have to use in smart transportation, that should be incorporated in the basic guideline, and also for, I think, from my view, it's help and support to make the right decision making in transportation, smart transportation. Our research are built in 4 stages. The first stage was a lot of work we have done by searching literature that deal with the value in high technology, a lot of paper in high-tech, sensor, everything, and also some kind of ethics guide and code of ethics. So from all the almost 200 paper, we rank or arrange all the value in one table. And the second stage was we clustered all the value as we described in the next slide. After that, we collected experts that come from some sector, deal with them what their opinion about the value, and finally the conclusion. Our research based on a famous model based on the Schwartz theory, professor in Hebrew University, that he put all the value in the surface in 4 clusters, where the horizontal value represent the self-enhancement and the opposite, in the vertical axis present the focus on the humanity, and the opposite the professionalism and realism. So if you see all these picture, you can divided the surface in 4 clusters, and dealing with the society, human attitude, economic, and personal knowledge, skill, and innovation. So what's the important of this in this model, that we put all the value, 100 of value, we put it in one of the cluster, so we have not to deal with all the value spatially. You can, in the first stage, dealing with the cluster, and after that we can do spatially in a value specifically. This is the basic of model. What we have got in this research, after the working with the experts, we rating all the value. As you see here, we find 13 value. Basically, it's very similar that we have got from the lecture review, but in another rating, for example, in transportation, the value safety we located in the high of these tables. That means that safety is the most important value in transportation. In contrast, in general, when we find in the literature review, safety was in the middle. So human dignity is found as the second, well-being as you see here. But what's important in our model, that we can located each of these value on the 4 group, on the cluster. So what is important in this model, we can put two value that close or support to other. We located in the same place or very close, also in value that work oppositely. So you located in the other side of this circle. So decision making can be done very, very easily, very logically, if we put all the value on this map. These models that work, and we use it for decision making, as I told before. So what in our conclusion in this research was, I summarized in 6 points, all the 13 values that we have found in the lecture review. We also find also in after the dealing with the expert system in the field of transportation in the other order. Safety, for example, as I told before, was in the first. It makes sense that safety is the first value in our research and also in transportation. Although it's generally it's not the first and the high priority in this value. Human dignity is located in the second. It's very complicated. What's the meaning of human dignity? What we speaking about a lot about privacy. Privacy, for example, is part of the human dignity. Profit is found that the value the most argued. What's the meaning of profit? But in our research, we refer to a financial benefit that can be realized. Of course, the profit work against against safety sometimes, and in the other side of the map. So it's very important value. Terminal. Okay. In 2 point, last 2 point, the terminology, or in other words, the language that people work in transportation is very important. That will be the same language, so each other understand what the meaning of the value. So in this research, we arrange the terminology of value, and finally the ethical value. It's depending of the special and the culture that we are dealing with. So this is briefly this research. Tal, please.
Thank you very much, Natan. And as part of this project, we engaged in this research together with Sharon Kopp. And the paper actually is published, and you can all read it, When Software Hits the Road, Policy Challenges of Minimal Viable Products in the Auto Tech Industry. Rather than engaging in the paper, I could tell you about an article. The paper was published already a few months ago. We commenced the project a year and a half ago. But in the Demarker, I usually don't endorse newspapers, not this newspaper, of course. But so in the Demarker of Friday, there was an article which I did not write, but it clearly encapsulates the thesis of my my talk. So I'll talk for a few minutes about this article, which possibly you read. So this article talks about things that I already knew about, the intense penetration of Chinese vehicles into the Israeli car market. So according to this article, just a few years ago, Chinese vehicles controlled a small percentile of the Israeli transportation market. We need to know that transportation markets are extremely conservative, concentrated, controlled by the main importers, and within a short time, they reached already 20% of the cars sold in Israel. From what I understand, the situation in Germany is even more drastic, and I think I heard that there are more Chinese cars sold than German cars in Germany, though I couldn't vouch for that. We also know of transitions happening in the United States regarding these issues. Now, the Chinese vehicles are different forms, but many of them have various digitalized and autonomous functions, which are of great interest. Now, I want to read with you an excerpt from this article. One excerpt, they say that the first Chinese cars actually in Europe had a problem penetrating the markets because they failed the crash test. You can't sue me for libel because I'm merely citing. So I say this is not my opinion; it's what's written in the article. But what the article went on to say is that the way the Chinese saw the cars is a computer on wheels or a used electronic device. This is a vast change from the way automobile industries existed. And I want to move you to the next excerpt. It says here that in many instances, the Israeli consumers received a better product, which looked as if its adaptation and development for the Israeli market has not been concluded. Now, as I said, I did not write this article, but in my paper, we clearly make the argument why this has been predictable and where this is going. So what we actually argue in the paper, that we see a few things. Software is something that we think about in computers and phones and running different systems, but it's appearing that one of the biggest software companies in the world are actually the automobile companies, which write millions of lines of code. And what we're also seeing is an interesting dynamic that the way that you engage in the protection of products, quality and safety in the automobile industry are unfitting to where the automobile industry is going. Because what we're saying, and we explained in the article on a theoretical level, which we see manifesting already in the Israeli environment, is that the Silicon Valley culture is percolating, entering, penetrating other instances, which are the automobile industry, in the fact that the automobile industry is becoming one which has a great deal of software and various elements of high-tech industries within it. And with this culture comes what we refer to as the MVP, not, from Boston Celtics, but big Celtics fan, but this minimal viable product premise, which means that unlike what we would think about the automobile industry, in the tech industry, when you enter the market, you don't enter with your best product, but here I have your most mature product. Very few companies can do that. It could be Apple maybe, or if you're producing toilet paper, but what you do is here I have this quote: if you are not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you're launched too late. Okay, so this is something that we clearly see with the other tech industry elements, especially even in services, in software, and the law has moved to accommodate this move. So the idea is that this whole lean startup methodology, which is a result, and we have this in the previous slide, of what happened in the .com, that you needed to have a product, but you needed to move quickly to the market, is that we're having these beta products, something that we haven't seen in the automobile industry, but perhaps we're seeing it now in smart cars, in semi-autonomous vehicles, and we have a feeling that this was happening before this article came out, based on various dynamics. We saw phantom braking. We saw fleets of cars operating in strange matters in big cities, and the only way we could understand that this is happening is that we see this culture moving from one industry to another. And when we have an age of AI, and we spoke about in previous panels, the issue is far more complicated. I know I have one more minute, so I'll say that in the age of AI, it makes sense because you move in with products that cannot only learn in a simulated environment that Yoram spoke about, but they probably need to learn in an open, actual market when there's intervention. But the problem here is, and this will be my last point, is that we might have unsafe vehicles on the roads. And we need perhaps to change the way that we control safety. So the various methods that we use vehicles is perhaps setting standards, having tests, and what Yoram spoke about, simulations. These might not be effective today, given this entire culture of moving to beta vehicles. And the shift might be in the areas of things that Gadi is talking about, which is changing the negligence regime and setting greater forms of liability to the vehicle operators and giving additional tools to drivers to sue for various accidents, actual or potential, because we probably cannot rely on these pre-testing. And someone said in a previous talk, we cannot be putting on the roads tools and vehicles that are not tested. But my last point will be, I completely understand and agree with the logic, but given OTA, which I'm sure people here know, I can't see how that exists. And in this article, they talk about the fact that the vehicles are being used by senior officers and Shabak managers, which is baffling to me. And the response that the article said, what they do to it is they just take out the cameras and the sensors. But when you have an OTA operation, I don't know what that even, that's not helpful. Okay, so that was great. סליחה.
I think that's better going to lunch.
Yes. Thank you very much.